Well, g'day, Patrick. Welcome to the show, mate. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. It's really nice to be here.
So, mate, whereabouts are you right now? Because I noticed a touch of an American accent, but you're not in America and you're not American.
No, I'm in Sweden. It's 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just kind of woke up, but it's fun. Yeah.
Okay, so you're the author of a book, and I'm just going to make sure I get this title exactly right. It's well, the title, you got a few titles, but the English one that we're going with today, which is How to Make Sure Your Child Doesn't End Up Like This Guy. I love
You
that
got it.
title. I love that title. What's it all about?
It's about being a role model and just being a parent and thinking about how you can do the best, and by showing by example, you show your children how to behave, and well, that's being a role model. Yeah.
Okay, so and you've got a Swedish version, you've got a Swedish website and a Swedish version of the book, and obviously the English ones. Have you got something there that you could show us? Like, have you got the books there that you could
Sure.
hold up to the camera?
Yeah. This is the Swedish version,
Okay, yeah.
light blue, and then we have the English version. Same information in both of them, but it'll be more easier for the English speaking people to read the English version.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, man,
So this is going to be a bigger one.
okay, so and I like the picture on there too. That's heaps cool. So first of all, how did you come up with that title and also like the subject for the book?
Well, if we start with the title, it all started in Sweden, and it's it's quite of a long story,
Yeah,
and it
go for it, man.
all right, it comes from me working with children. I started working as an au pair in the United States, like a nanny. I was working in a family, and I was working, and there was two children in the family, and one of the children he had a diagnosis of ADHD. At the time, I didn't know, and it took me about half a year before I was told by the parents that he actually had this diagnosis. When they were speaking about a troublesome boy in his class, I actually thought it was another kid with the same name. And I did understand that he was behaving differently with me. And at the time, I was young. I was just doing what I felt was right, and I didn't know what I was doing to get the results I got. I just noticed that he was behaving really well with me. When I came back home to Sweden, a friend of mine asked me to help out at his school because they had a small group of boys who needed some extra attention. So I started working in this school, and I got excellent result in this classroom. So good that the other specialty pedagogues at school was asking me, how do you do, or what do you do with these boys to get them to do, well, what we can't get them to do. And again, I was young. I was in the beginning of my career, and I was like, actually, I cannot explain what I'm doing, but I can invite you to my classroom so that you can watch me and you can hear me and you can just see what I'm doing with these boys. And that's what I did. And then I got questions from the parents, and I still remember the first time I got the question. They said, "What have you done with my boy?" And my heart was pounding really hard, and yeah, exactly. And I was trying to stay calm, and it's like, okay, my eyes were like really popping out, but still, I was calming myself and trying to look like really cool. And goes, "Okay, so what do you mean?" And they said, "Well, he seems to be really calm when he knows that you're here." And that's when I understood that, okay, I'm onto something here. And I said, well, that's fine. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. He's supposed to be calm just by knowing that he's giving the structure. And that's when I begin to listen to the questions I got. And I also listened to the answers I gave, because I knew I could answer questions. And those questions I kept. And when I came home, I posted them on the website. And because I wanted to give access to other people and other parents, since I realized I'm doing something that's a little bit rare or exclusive. Not everybody knows how to deal with these kind of kids. And it turned out to be quite a massive, information. And then I wanted to call the website something. So I call it Who's Raising Who? Because in my mind, I'm kind of seeing a child as an open page. They really don't know how to behave or think or what to do until we have shown them. And then if you have a blank paper and you show them what to do and how to do it, excuse me, you're beginning to raise them. And then as they grow up, they give back to you what you have taught them. And that's the reflections coming back to you. And if the reflection is smooth and nice, and you're working nicely together, you're doing something really good. And then you can see the way you have raised it working. So then they're raising you back, and then you can see that what I've done is good. I'm going to keep this. I'm going to keep this going, even if you don't know how you're doing it. You just keep on going. On the other hand, if the relationship is becoming, tangy, and it's kind of like crisp, and it's tension, and it's a lot of fighting, then you have taught your child how to communicate with you, and they do it with aggression and bad wording and everything like that. And then all of a sudden your child is beginning to raise you back. And as a parent, you have to then realize that you are the one who created this, and you need to make the change, like take a responsibility, make a change. There's nothing you can put on the child. So when you make the change, the child automatically makes the change because you are the role model. I'll be speaking about role model quite a lot. Mm-hmm. So by taking that responsibility, you make the change. The child automatically follows you, and in that sense, you can question who is raising who. But at the end, it's you as a parent who needs to figure this one out. So that's how I got the Swedish title.
Yeah.
And then I decided to translate everything into English, because I realized it's a universal problem. So I want to access the information to all English-speaking parents as well. And then I translated the title exactly, and I called my book "Who's Raising Who" first. And then I got in contact with Black Marketing Group with Jerry Roberts.
Black Card Marketing Group. Yeah, I know Jerry and Jean. They've both been on the show. Yep.
Yes, and Jean-Guy, and at the helm. And they kind of like cut the title in half and said, "This is not good. You need another title." So they asked me to come up with 10 new titles, and I did. I was doing my best and throwing up those titles, and I kind of enjoy "Who's Raising Who" the best, because that's kind of like my child. And they say, "This one's bad. It's not going to help you at all," and it kind of hurt me a little bit. And then when Jerry Roberts came up with a title that I do have now, "How to Make Sure Your Child Doesn't End Up Like This Guy."
Yeah, so hold the book up again. I love the photo. It goes so well with it. Yeah. Oh, that guy.
So when he did that, I realized I'm not going to debate with him, because he's the marketing guru.
Yeah.
I'm doing good what I'm doing, raising the children and helping parents understand how to do this. But he was telling me this title is a good title, and it's going to help people open up their eyes to the information in the book. I'll keep this one.
Yeah. So that's a good one. Yeah. So you come up with that title there.
Yes.
Okay. And so what actually prompted you to put it into a book? Because you're posting stuff up on the website, you're saying. Did someone say, "Hey, you got to write a book," or was that something you've always wanted to do? How did it come about?
It's actually out of fear, everything.
Please explain.
Well, I know how to deal with these children. I mean, I can walk into this classroom and I can tell them exactly what I want them to do. And then when I got questions from the parents and other pedagogues and colleague teachers, and they said, "Hey, we want you to come in and speak to us about this at a seminar or something like that." And I said, "No way, I'm not doing that." I was terrified standing in front of people, especially grown-ups. I could deal with one grown-up at a time, but not a bunch. So out of fear, I realized they need the information, but since I cannot stand in front of them, I have to find another way. So I started posting it on the web, and I thought I found the ultimate way of getting around the problem. It was quite naive, actually, because I got in contact with another company who saw what I wrote on the internet and thought, "This is really good. We want to work with you." And it was a prophylactic company. How they teach people how to breathe before you give birth to a child. So it was quite nice, because they teach children what to do before the child is born, and then they wanted to, and they had a lot of clients coming back to them because they trusted information and they thought, "This works really well. We could give birth to this child," and everything went smooth. And then now they come back and they said, "Okay, we have the child now. What do we do?" So the company was looking for someone who knew the information, what to do after the birth of a child, and they found me. And they wanted to conduct courses, and they said we need a book for this course so we can give to the parents coming to the course. So that's when I have to start writing the information and put it down into the book. And what happened was I had all this information on the web, and so I didn't have a structure or anything. So I had to actually put all the information through a funnel and to see, what have I done here? I mean, what am I thinking? What are my methods? Or so after putting it through this funnel, it comes out, and it comes out into 5 chapters. So in my book, I'm talking about traditions, I'm talking about attention, I'm talking about the language, I'm speaking about setting the boundaries and rules, and also time and touch. So those are the 5 chapters I'm talking about in my book. And since I was this naive and just believed that if I just post everything on the internet, I don't have to do seminars. I was actually forced to come to a company as a bunch of parents. And what I realized, I wasn't really afraid of speaking to the crowd. I was afraid of the questions.
Okay. So you could project your information just like a one-way sort of conversation, but when you actually, well, with the questions, what did you find challenging about answering the questions?
It was I was being unsure about telling the right answer or knowing kind of like the right answer. And that terrified me. So I had another solution to the problem. I thought, if I come there and I had just all of this information, I'm just going to push everything out. So there's going to be no time for questions. I thought it was an excellent move. So I went to this place, and I was just talking and talking and talking, and I thought it was really great. And after the show, I was standing there for 3 hours, and I was just pushing all the information out. And afterwards, I felt really great because, yes, I delivered, And I was contacted by the same company again, and they said, hey, can you come back and speak again? I said, yeah, sure I can. And they asked, can you bring not so much information so there will be time for the audience to ask questions? And I started sweating. It's like, oh, okay, how's this gonna work out? But I said, yes, sure, trying to act cool. Yeah, and I come back to this place, and the thing is, this time I'm expecting questions, and I'm all being prepared for questions, and I'm being all fired up about this, and like, okay, I'm gonna work this out. So I'm out there at 7:00, and I'm waiting for the latest people to come in there, and I glance at my time, and it's about 10 minutes past 7. And then I start to explain the information, and I'm doing really good. I got a whiteboard, and I'm drawing on the whiteboard. And I'm looking at my watch again, and it's 19:36. It's like almost 20 till 8. And I realized I have said everything, all the material that I brought, because I expected questions. And the crowd is silent. And I'm standing there like, holy moly, this is not true. Okay, so what I do now, I went completely blank. I had nothing more to say. I was convinced, okay, so this is the end. So I'm standing there, and I actually think I have nothing more to say. So if no one asks a question, it's going to be an awkward silence here. So just to stall and buy some time, I turn around and I point at my whiteboard, and I said, everything that I've explained so far, is it clear, or does someone need more explanation? And then as I'm doing that, I'm thinking, you better ask a question or it's going to be silence. And then there's a person in the audience asking me a question. And then, everything, the barrier just fell, and my fear went away too. And I started answering questions, and I stayed until 9:30 in the evening. So I actually, overdrew half an hour of the show too.
Wow. So that first question, sort of, what is it about that moment that broke that barrier? What happened? Like, you knew the answer? Like what?
I did know the answer. And also, it was just a mental blockage that I had. I had set myself up for this. So it was my worst moment as a speaker. And it what it did was it released the mental blockage, and now I don't really have any problems standing on in front of an audience or a big crowd. It could be small, little. It's just great fun standing in front of the audience.
Okay, so now you've got your book. You've done some speaking. Are you regularly speaking, or is it sort of as it comes up? You're not doing like speaking tours, that sort of thing?
I'm working on a speaking tour,
Okay.
and I'm standing in front of my class all the time,
Yeah.
so I
Okay.
get in a lot.
So now you've done some speaking. You got your book out there. Um, can you tell us now some of those things that were happening in that initial those classes that you were running, where the boys, were kind of calm and things were actually working out for you? What were some of the things that you were learning there, or that you uncovered that ended up in the book?
Well, one of the things is we, especially as a teacher, you're going to teacher at high school and you learn how to become a teacher, and they really don't teach you how to keep the order within the classroom. That's something you learn. And what I've noticed is that I can be really like square in my thinking, which was really helpful, especially for the boys. And it's mostly boys. It's a few girls, but mostly boys, and they respond very well to when you give it's kind of like a set of rules that's really easy to understand, and you limit the amount of rules too. I mean, after 3 rules, they start wander off and they're not with you anymore. You just keep it really narrow and keep it really firm and crystal clear, and it's really easy to have them do what you want. And also, what I figured out is that I can, because we have a tradition of being kind of like the a step behind your child, and it's really common. You can do that with your own children. That's not a problem because there's only like a few of them. But then, if the child is misbehaving, you can correct that behavior, and it's going to sort of fade out. In the classroom, they will trigger each other, so you need to find other ways to make sure that you have the behavior that you want. So what I noticed that if I started giving a lot of attention to a behavior that was good, what happens within the body, and this is what I learned afterwards. I was just doing from just by trial and error.
Yeah, you were just doing. It wasn't like a big strategy. You were just kind of just doing this.
I was just doing it
Yeah.
because it felt good doing it too.
Yeah.
And so what I started doing, I was focusing on, I'm just going to give attention for all the good they do. And if they do something bad, I'm gonna tell them, but I'm gonna keep it short and not a lot of preaching. And I'm gonna leave it. And that was one of the big keys to getting such a good result with these boys. Because I told them, you're doing really good now, even though it was just like the tiniest thing. I blew that up, so it became really big, especially in their world. And I realized they weren't giving a lot of this kind of attention from the surroundings, because the surroundings had already made a picture of how I was supposed to interact with these boys. I'm like, oh, they're just bad, they're treating you bad, they're talking bad, there's bad behavior, and all this, and they have all that set in their head. So, and that was the image from the grown-ups. They were projecting it to these boys, and it was kind of sad just listening to that from my colleagues. But that's what they did. So I figured I need to do something different here, and I learned later that I actually made an active decision of changing my image of these boys. It's kind of like, I'm going to find at least one thing per day that they're doing good, and I will make sure that they know that I saw that too. And what I learned in the classroom, and this one was quite funny. When I do this, it's kind of like I put a filter on, and I have this filter, and then I started seeing different things within the classroom. And when I did see it, I could see they did things when they did not know I was watching. And when I saw that, when they were not watching, I could just kind of like startle them, and I said, I saw that good thing you were doing. And I became really excited. And they were like, what? And they realized, oh my God, he's looking at me all the time. So I actually had them believe I was paying attention to them all the time, just by saying those things when they were not conscious of me watching them. And by doing that, I could expand this feeling of being, in their world. And they're like, oh my God, Patric is watching us, and he's looking for the good stuff that we're doing. And by doing that, I could shift the way of behavior from going bad to going to good. And you can do that.
That's amazing, man. That's really like, so I've got 3 boys. I've got 4 kids, and I can totally see from what you're saying now, all the places where I mess up, and I can see how when I have done what you've just said then, even at the small amount of times where it has worked, but you kind of, you might do it and you sort of don't think about it again, and then you get back to being grumpy and rah, 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 and fall into your old habits. But I'm totally engrossed in what you're saying now, man. This is great.
It is quite easy to fall back into your old habits. I mean, I've done that too, and I can feel, especially when I have a cold, if I've slept bad, or if there's a lot of pressure on work, I can definitely relate to going back to my old habits and just like screaming and yelling and just being a pain in the ass, basically.
So how do you keep up with the being deliberate about this and continuing this?
It's the response I get from the children. That's and the most fun thing is when you have one of those child who's being so obnoxious, and other teachers are coming and they say, "Hey, Patrick, you need to come over to my classroom because these children they behave like crazy, and I don't know what to do." And I just step into the classroom, and as soon as I enter the classroom, it's just silence, and then just sit down, and they behave like angels, and it really messes up my mind because I'm thinking, what are you not doing? I'm thinking about the other teachers.
Yeah.
And it's like, how can you not do this and make them sit down and just listen to you? And I'm just getting into the classroom, and it's kind of like, oops, okay, Patrick is here, we better behave. And I said, yeah, you better behave. And because their imagination of what will I do is so much greater than I can ever tell them. So it's kind of like using their own imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is your presence then? So obviously these kids know who you are, and Patrick's here. So what is it about you walking into the room? What's their previous experience that allows that to happen?
Well, what happens is within the child, we know there's needs within a child, and we all need to attention, and then there's a scale of attention. I mean, on the top, there's positive attention, and that's what we're striving for. As number 2, there's negative attention, and as number 3, there's absence of attention. And the child always is trying to climb up on the scale and reach on the top. Most of the time, we land on number 2, the negative attention, and they know how that works. And how it works is that the positive attention, as I said, that's the best one. But if you can't get the positive attention, you will do anything to have the negative attention. Even though it's like knocking over a trash can or shouting something to a fellow classmate, at least, and then the teacher comes and like, "Oh, what are you doing? You better stop this!" And you're really hassling the child, and the child within the child has like, "Oh my God, they see me! Oh, thank you." You can't really say it feels great, but if they don't have a feeling of how it feels to get the positive attention, that's the only thing they have, because being ignored, that's the absolute worst. And I mean, a child can do basically anything to get over being ignored, to at least get negative attention. And that's what I give my students. I surpass the negative, and I just go right into the positive one, and that's what they get when when they are in my classroom and in my presence. So I have basically taught them how to behave to get my positive attention. So that's what happens when I step into the classroom. They instantly they realize, okay, so I need to behave now in this specific way to get the attention from Patrick, and then the positive attention too. So that's basically what happens.
Now, with that situation, do you reckon they're making a deliberate decision? Oh, Patrick's here, I want to get the positive, or is it actually subconscious?
It's subconscious. I taught them that.
Okay, so let's talk a bit about the brain now, because I know we spoke yesterday, just had a conversation yesterday, and we were talking about the brain. Now, that's a subject I really love, is just kind of how the brain works and does what it does, man. So can you just talk about the brain? Because, I love what you know about it.
Absolutely. And this one is one of the key ingredients that I use also in my classroom. And I did it by faulty when I started, like default. And I learned that the brain thinks in pictures. So it's trying to translate all the words that we have into a picture. And then we have a few words that's messing up our communication with the children. And one of the biggest one we have is the word don't. And I've been checking different kind of languages. As you know, I'm Swedish, so I'm really close to Norwegian, German, Swedish, French, Italian, Spanish. And then, so it's easy to check within, in Europe to see. And there's the word exists in all these languages. I even checked Japanese, and they have that word also in Japanese. They don't use it as much, but they have it. What happens is that the brain has a really hard time finding a picture for this word don't. And it's quite clear. If you have a little child climbing on the table, it's easy for you as a parent. And by habit and tradition, you say, hey, don't climb the table. What happens within the child, a little child, is that they have learned different words, and the brain has put pictures to some of the words. And it hears your sensing, and it goes don't, and the child's like, well, I don't know that word yet, so I'm just going to put in a mumble for now, and we'll see what happens at the end of the conversation or the sentence. They're not thinking this consciously, but this is what happens within the brain. And they go to the next word. They go climb. Oh yes, I'm good at that. I know exactly what climbing is. For just like a year and a half years, I do this all the time. I climb, and on. Okay. No problem. I know what on is. I mean, I'm on my way up on top of the table, and they know what a table is because it's a physical word and explains something physical. And exactly, they have a fine picture of table. So they're like, okay, climb the table. No problem. I can do this. And they keep on climbing. And as a parent, you go, well, don't climb the table. And the child goes, yes, mumble, climb the table. I'm doing it. I'm doing exactly as my parents are telling me, especially my dad. He's great. And then as a parent, you can't really hear this. So what you do is like you lean over and then you start to use your body language and you go, don't climb the table. And you lower your voice. And the child starts to realize, okay, something's going on here. I'm not sure what it is. So I'm going to try climb just a little bit more. What happens? And then you kind of like really lean over and say, hey, don't climb the table. And you do it really dark. And you might even start to shout. And then the child backs off and it's like, okay. It's not thinking it consciously, but it's kind of like, okay, so I'm going to do exactly the opposite of what you say when you get really loud. So you're starting to create a double bind right there. Now, if we erase,
what do you mean double bind? What do you mean by that?
Well, you're telling one thing as a parent. You say don't climb the table, and you think you're really great because you're telling exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
Within the child, something different happens because they are lacking a picture of the word don't.
Yeah.
So a child hears mumble, climb the table, and a grown-up, you can see in your mind, stop climbing the table, but that's not what you're saying. You're saying don't climb the table. So you're actually giving them an instruction to climb the table.
And what's the other half of the double bind? That you go like this or something? Is that the connection?
Exactly. So the double bind is that you're using your body language to enforce an information that you're telling the child to do.
Yeah.
But your body language is telling them to do the opposite of what you're actually using your mouth and telling them to do.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah, so the mouth is part of the body language, and then your this body language is a different kind of body language.
So that's confusing the child.
It definitely. Oh yeah, I wouldn't want to be a year and a half in that family.
Okay, so yeah, what were you saying before I interrupted you? What comes after that?
Yeah, so what you want to do is that, well, the child gets really confused, but is learning, okay, so when my parents get really loud and start pointing my fingers, I'm supposed to do the opposite of what they do. So they're like, okay, but it's really confusing when we're using this word don't. So what we need to do is that we need to learn when to use this word. And as a beginner, we're going to kind of like erase it, especially if we give an instruction to a child. And this one, I've used this in the classroom, so I know it works. I can get like 27 people to do what I want just by using the language. And I'm erasing the word don't in this sentence, and I'm telling them what I want to happen.
Okay. And
if you do that, then you can start doing it over a distance too. I mean, I can stand way back in the classroom, and I can just point. If you want this child to stop climbing the table, you tell them, stop climbing the table. And the child says, fine. They know exactly what stop is. They know what climbing is. And they also know what the table is. So and then you can use your body language and say, stop climbing the table. You don't even have to raise your voice. You can still have kind of like a happy face also. And they say, yeah, sure, I stopped climbing the table because you asked me to. And then you can start doing this over a distance, and you can, kind of like use your hand and just point, stop climbing the table, just get down. Yeah. And so you don't have to get loud, and they understand this. And that's the beauty of the brain. If you know what kind of pictures that you want to put within the children, you can start planting this kind of information. I have my students, and it's going to be a lot of talking with students because the information comes from the student. But I use it on my own children as well. I have two beautiful children, and some of those students, they come and ask me questions and say, "Oh, Patrick, this is so hard." And I said, "Yes, it's not that easy." So I'm planting the word easy in their brain, so they start seeing things as easy, even though it's difficult. I thought, okay, it might be difficult in the beginning, but it's going to be easy to solve. So that's how we can use the words that we're using it, and it works great. You can trick both your children and your students to overcome whatever they think is difficult by knowing how to alter the words that we already know how to use.
Okay, so and this sort of stuff, is this in the book itself, like this kind of information?
Yeah,
excellent.
There's a whole chapter of the language.
Oh, so this is all part of the language thing and how the brain uses. So this is great, like about how you can get really purposeful about the pictures. That's what you're saying, like, because that's how the brain thinks. So if you can actually construct your sentences to invoke certain pictures, then you're going to get a better result. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Is that right? And we can do that as adults too. Yeah, to ourselves.
There's a lot of adults who say, "Oh, I'm feeling sick today." If you get a question, so how are you doing? "Oh, I'm feeling sick." What you can do is that you can actually use the word "don't" in that sentence, and you can give yourself an instruction because your own body is listening to you and is trying to follow your advice and your instructions. And if someone asks you how you're doing, and you say, "Oh, I don't feel that well," you're actually using the word "don't," and the brain is putting in the mumble there. So the brain hears, "I am feeling mumble pretty good."
Okay, yeah.
And then the immune system, everything starts like, okay, so I'm actually feeling pretty good, even though I can feel that my physical is a little bit down. But he tells me I'm feeling pretty good. Nice to know. So the immune system, everything starts to going on fixing yourself so that you get rid of the cold or whatever you have, and you start to feel really good. So you can condition yourself too and talk to yourself in a good way and make you feel happy.
Yeah, so it's kind of like it's kind of wrapping it up with your identity as well, because you want to, if you're saying you feel one way and you're feeling, I am feeling well, or I don't feel well, and you're using that command, your identity you want to be true to what your identity is. So you will do whatever it takes to be right. So if you're saying, exactly. Is that right? Is that sort of same kind of thinking there?
Yes, it's really good. It's really good.
Excellent. So now with the book, so what are the 5 chapters, and do they kind of run through like a process and order that you kind of come out the other end? So could you just quickly talk about sort of each chapter in order so that people can maybe get a bit of a takeaway to kind of start using some of this stuff today?
Absolutely. The first chapter that I'm using is tradition, and that's the way of how we deliver the information to the young ones, and also the peers that we have, like colleagues and everything. If you walk into any kind of work, you have a preset mind of the kind of people that are in this company, the colleagues, how they're supposed to act, and also how you're supposed to act and behave. And I have been fortunate to be able to move from different schools. So I have the opportunity to test how these things work. And we create habits. And I realized in the beginning I was a bit grumpy, and I was like, I wasn't smiling that much. And I realized after a while I looked better smiling. So and another thing, I noticed that my students, they didn't know when I was kidding with them, because I always had this straight face like all the time. Yeah. So I had to learn that whenever I made a joke or kidded with them, I had to smile so they understood. Okay, he's kidding with us now. Yeah. So it's kind of like tricking into wisdom. And so it's all about habits and how we behave and how we talk to our children. And a lot of these traditions, behavior we gotten from our parents. There's a few funny things when I moved to the United States. I moved into a family, and I could see. First time I stepped into the house, I asked them, "So where do I put my shoes?" And the family said, "Wherever you want to." And I was like, "What, in my room?" And they said, "Yeah, if you want to." And as a Swede, we take off our shoes at the entrance when you step into a house or an apartment or anything. So what I do is I take off my shoes and I hold them in my hand and I walk off to the room. That's when I was an exchange student.
Yeah.
So I take off my shoes And it was not until the day after I noticed that everybody else were wearing their shoes within the house. And I was like, wow. So this is true because I watched on TV. I can see everybody was walking with their shoes inside. I was like, wow, this is for real. So that's what was two traditions. I couldn't say clashing, but it was it opened up my eyes that it's really different. And then I went to the store and I could see they were carrying their groceries in these brown bags. I was like, my God, this is true. I've seen this on TV, but I didn't think that was for real. I thought it was TV only. And I realized we're just having different kinds of bags in Sweden. Yeah. So it opened up my eyes to see that we're just trying to figure out things in different ways. And we're doing this also in our house. And I remember once I did tell my wife, because I started, growing deeper into this. How can I become even greater at being conscious of what I'm teaching my children? And I really woke up that day when I saw our daughter sleeping. And I said, you know what? She sleeps exactly like you do. And that's when she turned to me and she said, you know what? Our boy sleeps exactly the way you do. And that's when I started to understand the unconscious information that we give our children is far greater than I could ever imagine, because I am certain I am not teaching my boy how to sleep. So my sleeping patterns he's picking up by being unconsciously lying right beside me. And so did our daughter. And I found it quite interesting that she was picking up the female way of sleeping and my boy was picking up the male version. And that's when I got deeper into this. I was thinking, okay, so I need to be a little bit more careful of what I do and how I say things. And I thought it was so important that I started my book with this chapter explaining where do all these habits come from. I have a story within the book, and I'm going to do it quite short. Yeah. And this one, it explains how these habits start. And so there's some scientists. They made an experiment with monkeys. So they put a bunch of monkeys, let's say 10 monkeys, within a room. In this room, they put a small platform, a little bit elevated. So you had to use a ladder to get up there. On this little platform, they put all this delicious bowl with a bunch of fruit, and all the monkeys could smell how good it smelled. But there's only room for one monkey at a time. So now what they did was that this platform, they connected it and they put electricity in the floor of where all the other monkeys were. So whenever a monkey climbed up to this platform to have some of this great food, it triggered an electricity. So all the other monkeys got some electricity that was uncomfortable only in their feet. So after a while, they started to realize that if you're on the platform, we get uncomfortable in our feet. So they started stopping each other from climbing up the ladder, even though it was great fruit up there. And then they they just took one monkey out and they put another one into the room. And the new monkey had no clue of what's going on in the room, but it could smell like, oh, up here on the platform, there's good fruit. I'm going to go there. But the other monkeys, they knew what happens. So whenever this new monkey climbed over to start to climb the ladder, they walked over and they just pulled him down. And it's like, and showed him like, nope, that's bad. You're not supposed to climb up there. And the experiment continues. So they take another monkey out and they put a new one in. So now we've got two new ones. And still, the second new one, he can see the fruit and smell the fruit, and you go into the ladder. And now all the rest of the 9 ones, they begin to learn that no, the old 8 ones, they know if you climb out there, we're going to hurt our feet, so we're not going to let you climb out there. So they just pull him down and really make sure that he understands that no way you're climbing up there. So this is what they do. So they take one monkey out and they put one in, and sooner or later they have exchanged all 10 of them. So you actually have all new 10 monkeys. And when they put the 10th one in there, none of the other 9 was there from the beginning. So they really don't know that if you climb up on top of this platform, you get like electricity in your feet. But they know, they have learned the habit of, if someone is trying to climb up the ladder, you're supposed to pull him down and make sure that he doesn't climb up there. So, and this is how we create habits. There's a lot of habits that we're doing. We don't know why. We just do it because it's been, taught from our parents down to us, and which is given from their grandparents. So it's quite interesting if we start to look at what we're teaching our children from this perspective.
That's amazing. That's yeah. So like just about that story, the 10 monkeys, none of them had experienced the
No,
reason that you don't climb, but they just know you don't do that, and that
exactly,
becomes our tradition, and that goes through generation after generation after
definitely.
generation.
Oh yeah, and so it's kind of sad that it happens, but we do that as humans. We're not as advanced as we think. I mean, I've caught myself many times doing these kind of things. I mean, as a teacher, I'm standing in the classroom. When I realized this, it was kind of a revelation. You know, as a teacher, you want to give the same information to everyone at the same time, just to make sure that everybody heard the same thing. Okay, that's a tradition. So I had my students coming in from a break, and the first students asked, "So what are we going to what are we going to do now?" And I said, "If you take your seat and sit down, I'm going to tell it when everybody's inside." Next student comes by and said, "So what are we going to do now? If you take your seat and sit down, I will explain to you when everybody's inside." The third student comes by and asks, "So what are we going to do now?" Well, have your seat. And I realized, what am I saying? So I stopped myself and said, "We're having math." And yeah, and the child was all satisfied with that and sat down. I was like, why am I like repeating myself like a parrot, the same over and over again? I can just say what what we're going to do. So when the next student comes by and say, "Hey, Patrick, what are we going to do?" Math. Much shorter, and I gave the information that the child needed. The next comes by and they say, "What are we going to do?" Math. Okay, they're all satisfied with the information. And that's when I learned to break one of those habits. So why am I supposed to wait until everybody is sitting in their place before I give them information? No, just break that habit. I tell them what we're going to do. And it was a lot quicker, and I didn't get upset either. It's like,
Yeah, well,
we're doing math.
you're using less words, and they're getting the information, and they're more satisfied. So when they sit down, they're
Yeah.
ready. No, that sounds
Yeah.
tops. So after tradition, what comes next?
I'm talking about the attention, and this is it sounds really easy when you explain it, because what you do is that you focus on the good behavior that you want a child to behave, and you start looking for this. It's kind of like you're putting on a filter on your eyes, and it kind of like works like this. I give my parents an exercise, and I tell them, if you look around in your room and you look for all the red in your room,
Yeah.
and I give them about 10 seconds to look around, and then I ask them to close their eyes. And I said, "Now I want you to tell me all the blue things that you saw in the room." And they're like, "Why? I didn't see any blue. I was just looking for red." Exactly, because I gave you the filter, just look for red. And we can translate red into just look for bad behavior. So if I tell you, look for bad behavior, you will look for bad behavior all the time within the children. So what I'm trying to teach them is that you can choose to look for red, or you can choose to look for blue. And then whatever that means to you, it could be anything. But in my world, if I choose to look for blue, I put my blue filter on, and I'm just looking for blue. And blue is good behavior. And that's all I see, which means that I'm looking for good behavior within my students. So I'm giving attention only for good behavior. It's not like I don't see the other. I'm just choosing not to put my time into it, my effort into it, and my patience or whatever. It's just like, leave that behind. I don't want to bother with that. I just want to see all the good behavior, and then I'm giving them good attention for the behavior that I want. And we were speaking about it before, and then I'm starting to fill the emotional bowls they have within their body of the good behavior and the good attention. So I'm pushing them up to the positive attention scale, and that's we want them to be there, because even NASA had made some research, and they have come to the conclusion it takes a lot less energy to retain a positive environment than a negative environment. So it's a lot of work in the beginning before you come all the way to the top. But when you're there, all the energy that you used on getting past the negative one is well spent time and effort also.
That sounds awesome, man. I'm already thinking of ways I can use that. That's like a big takeaway right there. Excellent.
I do have some children. Sometimes they say, "Hey, Patrick, you laugh so much." I do, and they go, "Why?" "Because you're so funny," and they don't realize how funny they are. Yeah, and that's the point. And they're like, Well, we're not funny. I said, yes, you are. You say funny things in the most funniest way, and I'm actually laughing with them. I can burst out laughing within the classroom if someone says something funny, and it lifts the entire environment, and everybody starts laughing, and the student starts to understand. Oh, we can learn and laugh at the same time and have fun. I said, yeah, exactly, because I want to have fun too. I just want to stand here and talk to you all the guys. I want to laugh and have fun as well. So it's a bit of a clown too, and monkeying around in the classroom,
That's
and it
unreal.
helps. Absolutely, children loves it. They and what I'm showing them is that you can have fun and you can learn at the same time. And being a teacher, I can laugh with you because this is all fun. It's great, and yeah. So we're just pushing it up to the positive level.
That's
There's a
unreal.
lot of laughter in
Yeah.
my classroom. Yeah.
Okay, so that's so with after attention, what's next?
I'm talking about the language and how I'm going into the brain and how the brain is converting into pictures, and I'm talking about don't, and there's a lot of sentences there, and I have some sentences taken from all various parts of the society. I have one from a bottle company. It says one on the label, "Don't drink and drive." I think that's quite funny because you have the don't there, so it's like mumble, drink and drive. Uh, okay.
Given that a bad embedded command in that sentence there. Oh yeah, so
Yeah.
we kind of covered the language thing just before. After language, what's
Right.
next?
I'm talking about the rules and the boundaries.
Oh yeah.
And what I'm trying to do is that I'm kind of limiting all the rules that we have. So, and I'm putting them in a way what you're allowed to do, not what is kind of like don't run in the hallway. It gives them an instruction, mumbled run in the hallway. I mean, you have kids running in the hallway all the time. So what I state is then walk inside. You speak with a little voice. You speak kindly to your friends. You say thank you if a teacher or grown up is giving you something. That kind of rules. And I usually compare it with if you're like in a country. A country has outer boundaries, and then if you're out that you're out of bounds. You're in a different country, and different rules apply. So within these boundaries, we have different set of rules, and that's just to help the children navigate, to start finding their own pathway moving forward. So you're kind of like the coach in between these boundaries. So you have to be really firm with the outer limit, and then keep the rules within, really narrow and easy. I actually worked in a school where they only had two rules. One was be kind to your friends and be careful with the school material. And that's all we had. No more rules than that. So we had a constant conversation of what does it mean to be kind to your friends? What does it mean to be careful with school material? So instead of just enforcing all these rules, we had a discussion around these rules, and it worked quite fine.
Yeah,
And
I can see that too, and it's the simplicity of it. Yeah, what does it mean to be kind? It
yes,
creates
yeah.
that discussion as opposed to
I mean,
mumble, don't do this,
oh
mumble.
yeah, yeah. And as a grown up, it's really easy to post a note on the wall with 10 different rules, and it's like, well, have you seen the rules? I put them on the wall. You're supposed to know this, and like, yeah, right.
Yeah,
As a child, you can remember seven things at most. I mean, as a grown up also, and as soon as the eighth thing comes in, the seventh or the first one pops out because you only have room for seven things at the same time. So. And they're more interested in games, and they're interested in playing a game. They're not interested in following the rules or remembering the rules. Of course, they're interested in following the rules, but not remembering them. So keep it simple. That's what you need to do, and crystal clear.
yeah. So, for example, like in your household, you got different rules than say in someone else's house or in the schoolyard. So they're like those little boundary areas. So in the house, what will be what will be a set of simple rules? So what, for example, in your house, like what are some simple rules that we follow?
Oh, this is a cool one. I had a rule that you're not swearing while we're eating. If you swear, you're walking out into the hallway, and I put you there. And actually, my child, she was talking about this the other day, and she said, "I remember when it happens." And she actually remembered. She was sitting by the table, and she was about 4 years old, and she was like, "I want to test this and see how it works." And she was swearing, and she was expecting nothing to happen. And I said, "There's no cussing here. If you do it one more time, I'll send you out in the hallway." And she was like, "Oh yeah, right." So she did cuss again, and I said, "Okay, out in the hall and play. You just stand on the carpet right there until I call you back. And she's like, oh, wow, this is for real. Oh, I didn't realize it was going to happen. So she was standing there for a while, and she actually said this was uncomfortable. I didn't want to stand there. So I called her back and said, oh, you can come back now. And do you understand why I put you there? She goes, yeah, I was swearing. Good. So can you do to prevent this? Oh, not swearing. Good. You've learned. And she didn't swear anything at all. That was the last time she swore. A funny thing happened. One day I was a bit upset, so I did swear. And she was looking up, and she was a little bit confused. Oh, what do I do now? Does this only apply to children or also grown-ups? And encouraged by her mother said, hey, why don't you send Dad out to the hall, because he was swearing. So she go, okay, you need to go. You swore, so you need to go out to the hallway. And I did, because I was showing her by being a role model now. Okay, it applies to grown-ups as well as children. That's the rule. So I walked out into the hall, and I was standing there, and I could kind of have the sense of she was feeling like great sitting there. It's like, yeah, I sent him out. And after a while, I heard her mother whisper, you can call him back now. And she was like, oh, hey, Dad, you can come back now. So I came. And that's how, enforce the rules. And just by example, showing them, I follow the rules too. And if I follow them, it's going to be a lot easier to enforce them with the children and say, this is the rules we have. We follow the rules.
Okay, so
that was...
Yeah, no, that's just like a good example, and making her feel good about how the rules are set and how, the example, everything there. So that's boundaries, and what's after boundaries? I think that we're up to the final one now, aren't we?
Yeah, this is the time and touch. If you really start to listen to what the child wants from you, you can ask them, what would you like for Christmas? They can give you a whole list of stuff that they want, but what they really want is your time. So the number one on their list is your time. The number two on their list is your time. The number three on their list is your time. And after that, they ask for toys and things like that. So they want your time, and it's quality time. I make a difference between quantity time and quality time. Quality time is that when you actually spend time with your children. If you sit down on the floor and building Lego with them, or you sit down with your child and you do some handcraft. I'm not really this type of guy that loves to do little things with my hands or sitting drawing and stuff. But I know the value of sitting down with my child doing these kind of things. So I've learned. I do, paper handcraft with my children. I sit and draw. I'm lousy at drawing, but I do it anyways. And I scissor things, and I glue, and I use all these things because I get quality time with my children, and that's what is important to me. So I do it, and over time I've gotten quite good at it too. So so I'm beginning to enjoy it now, though.
You're good at craft now.
I'm so good at it. They gave me the responsibility for crafts at after school care in one school. And that's when I really had to develop my skills as being a craftsman with little crafts with children. It was quite cool. And then the touch, I'm really into touching, and it's like knowing. I mean, I can pat the children on their shoulders or on their arms, and when they're little, they really want to, be more physical, and so that you can hug them, and they know that I'm doing this. I work with older students, which is they're up to like 14, 15 in Sweden, and they are also in need of the physical touch. And then so I'm just really careful of where I touch them.
That's what I was going to say. Like with all the rules and that sort of stuff. Like how does that play out, say, as a teacher? For that, because if they're so important to them, but there's so much bad stuff going on out there. Yeah,
there's I mean, this area on your shoulder and the arm, that's a good area to touch them. Like you pat them on the backs, like this, and they know that I'm doing this. And then one of the things that I learned with these kids that had the ADHD. They had difficulty connecting with their fathers or parents, and they weren't giving a lot of hugs and physical touch. So when I noticed that, I actually said I started giving them hugs. And if they refused to give me a hug, I would, if I translate, it would be beard them. And I said, you give me a hug or I'll beard you. And they're like, what happens? So what I saved my beard so it became a little bit like sandpaper.
Yeah.
Yeah. I came and I was like, hey, you give me a hug. And if they refused, I just came out and I rubbed my chin against their chin. And then when you have a little bit of beard, it hurts. So what I actually did, because I knew they needed this kind of physical closeness, I was saving their face because they all knew that you better give Patrick a hug or you will get this scratch on your chin and that really hurts. So, and I only had to do that, like in the beginning, and then the word spread. So what this is not like with the 10 monkeys. I didn't have to do it anymore because they all knew that give him a hug or he will scratch you on your face and it really hurts. So I was saving their face and I could, come and hug them. And the good thing is that what nobody else noticed, but I was, and they started hugging me back, and squeezing a little bit harder and holding just a little bit longer. And that gave me an indication of this is really valuable. So I kept on doing it. And the bonus is when there's a 14, 15-year-old a boy coming round the street and yelling, hey, Patrick, how you doing? And they just throw themselves around my arms. And I don't recognize them because they've grown so much. And, I have to let go. It's like, okay, so who am I looking at? And it's like, oh, how are you doing? That's the greatest feeling. And that's when I know I did the right thing. So they know that I'm treating the students similar at the best of my abilities, and when they, especially when the girls, when they grow older, it's the arms and the shoulder. I don't do anything more than unless they indicate they would like something more, and then I can give them a hug, and then okay, so just make sure that, and that's my boundaries right here. I'm willing to give you a hug as a professional, and I do the same with the boys too. They have learned a different kind of communicating with each other, but I give them hugs too. And when the younger children, I can just be standing on the schoolyard and I can see some child is walking by and I can just stretch out my hand and I just swoop them in and I'm holding them. I'm not talking to them. I'm just holding on to them and they stand right beside me. And after a while, you start to develop this feeling of when a child has filled up enough of love, affection, because then they walk off. And so learn that, okay, if I need to fill up with some affection and love, I just come and stand beside Patrick and he's going to give it to me. And as a professional, I do that. I just, I can have like 4 or 5 children just standing, almost leaning on me as I were a tree or something. And I understand they're standing beside me now because they want to fill up with some love and affection and they just want to be in this energy that I can create. And that's what I'm talking about. And I also taught myself to become a massage therapist. I've been doing courses. And I've been talking to my principal of the school, and I think it's so important. I got it on my schedule. So I have been teaching my children how to massage each other within the classroom. And what I've noticed is that, there's a lot of endorphins that the body produces just by giving the massage. So what happens is that the bullying lowers within the classroom. The way that you speak to each other becomes more soft, and also it's more difficult to be mean to someone you're just giving massage. Yeah,
it's amazing.
And that's the point. It's so simple and so amazing. I think it should be a law, like a rule. Everybody should do massage in a school, just because it gives so much.
And it sounds like it's like, I'm sure it's a lot of work and a lot of effort to kind of put everything in place, but it just sounds like a bunch of the simple things, just a lot of little simple things that you just pay attention to and execute like regularly, consistently, and you kind of get these results. You're like the child whisperer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just amazing. I'm just picturing like my household because four kids. I got 12, 9, 6, and 3. So boy, girl, boy. The 3 boys, man, like they're wild and have a lot of fun and stuff, but they're as difficult as they are, and awesome and hard, and there's a lot of tension that happens. Boys just rumble and fight. So I'm keen to go away and test all this stuff in the field, just out there.
Absolutely, and I'd be glad to give you. You can get a free copy of my book too. Just need to go to my website. Where
is that, man? What's the website?
Oh, the website is who'sraisingwho.com.
Who'sraisingwho.com. That's the English one.
That's the English one.
Now, I
The
wanted to get
Swedish,
you to say the Swedish one. I couldn't pronounce it. So how do you pronounce it in Swedish?
vemuppfostrarvem.se.
Okay, I'm going to put both of those links up there. One just because you can go get it in English, and the other one just because it's cool.
Yeah, and that's just it's the same stuff in both books. So if you want to, you can download both of them. They're both for free. So
Okay, so you can just download straight off the website for free.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
totally awesome, man.
yeah,
Now, have you got a Facebook page as well? I might link that up as well.
yeah. It's the Facebook page is called "How to Make Sure Your Child Doesn't End Up Like This Guy."
Okay, cool. So I'll link all those up. So anyone that's sort of listening in, if you're out there in sort of internet radio land and not actually on the site watching this, click over to my main page here on the petermontgomeryshow.com and find these links. Click through, get the books. We've already got ours on the Kindle because it comes out straight in. You can get it and do that. So do that, guys. Patrick, you've been an awesome guest. I've learned heaps and heaps and heaps. I have a personal interest in this because I need this information. This is unreal. So yeah, man, thanks again for coming on and sharing that with us.
Oh, no worries. It was just great, and thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, man. All right, you take it easy. I'll see you next time.
All righty, bye bye.
Yeah.
So what I didn't say that I realized at the end is it's kind of like it's a circle. I start with traditions and I circle around and I end with the time and touch, and that binds right into the traditions because most of us doesn't really take this seriously of putting the hand on the shoulder, like really showing I appreciate what you're doing, and by doing that you're creating a new habit, and that's when you come into the new traditions.
It creates the new tradition. Yeah.
Yeah, a new habit right there.
Excellent.
I mean, even though those children who are the worst, I've had, grown-ups, I shouldn't say grown-ups, but 14, 15-year-olds standing and just pointing their fingers because they want to get their anger out at me because I told them a rule. It's like, this is the rule. And all I can do is just like, I can just smile. It's like, okay, I can see that you are in lack of love. I'm not going to give you aggression back. I'm just going to give. So in my mind, I'm thinking I have to give these love. Even though my heart is pounding the fastest, I have to think love to these guys because that's what they need. And there's students like that who over time comes back to me because they understand when there's a stormy, Patrick is standing still. I can trust him. No matter how angry I get at this guy, he's standing there, and he's standing there because he believes to be supportive. That's what happens within their body. They don't think this rationally, but I can see the result is when they need an answer, good or bad, they know who to come to because they've learned that I will tell them the truth as I see it, and if it's hard truth, I still will tell them. I just choose my words carefully, but I still tell them the truth. I said, you need to do this, or else this is going to happen. And that's, oh yeah, exactly. And that's one reason why I put time and touch at the end, because I want people to have that as a memory. The last thing they read in my book is that how important it is to spend time with your children and touching them and hugging them and just being close to them. I mean, we're physical beings. We need that closeness. I do too.